Mr. Secretary, your Marines.
Well, thanks to Colonel Holmes for that, General Rocco for having me here, and thanks to each and every one of you for what you do for us every single day. You're at a pivotal time and a pivotal place for our country and our Marine Corps. And this is why when I was talking to the Commandant, Bob Neller, about the budget, which is an important topic, obviously. We're going to be releasing it very shortly. But more generally, when I was talking to Bob about all of the management challenges and command challenges that we try to work through together for the Marine Corps, he thought that this was a great place for me to come and get a feel for the opportunities we have to invest in the Marines, which we're doing this year, making some important investments. I'll tell you what they are in a moment. But why is that? Why is this place central and pivotal at this time? We're making a strategic transition in our military today because we are realizing, and we have the capability and the determination, and we're going to get the funding to both deal with the threats that we face today, and they're very real. You guys know this because you're the first to fight, as the Marines always have been, and it ranges from the need to defeat ISIL and to accelerate that defeat of this group. This has got to go. Right up to things like, today, this week people are watching North Korea. We watch North Korea every single day and have for 60 years. And you do that. So we have to, at the same time, you have to be ready for today's fights. We're also trying to make you and the rest of the force ready for tomorrow's possible fights. That includes high-end potential competitors, including countries we don't want to have a war with, but deterrence is important. That includes countries like China and Russia that have spend a lot on their militaries, and with which we have a sometimes competitive relationship, and we need to be ready and make it clear to them and anybody else who might come along in the future that if you tangle with the United States, probably better not to do that in the first place. And if you do, you'll regret it. That kind of full spectrum of capability is what we need from the Marine Corps today. And we thought that my being here at this time would both help me further inform myself, but more importantly, because I follow what you do very closely, signify the changes and the investments we're making. You have all type model series out here. I mean, spectacular breadth of capability in the Marine Corps today. I wanted to particularly speak to readiness to you because you are kind of the beating heart of readiness for the Marine Corps. And so you see everything that is involved in keeping high readiness: crew proficiency, airframe availability, and in that connection, airframe availability and just generally maintenance and readiness overall, particularly in marine aviation. That's an area where we're making investments in this year's budget. And there are kind of two ways you do that. One is by investing more in maintenance itself, in depot maintenance, in parts, spare parts, and I'll say more about that, especially with respect to the F-18. We're increasing funding for depot maintenance for F-18s in recognition, which some of you know who work with F-18s, particularly for the older models, and that we've worked extremely hard they're more challenged in the maintenance sense than we had anticipated, and we've got a backlog in the depots that we need to catch up with. That takes money. We're going to fund that. Elsewhere in the tactical air fleet, another way to deal with maintenance for the long run is to hasten the arrival of the new. And then you don't have to maintain the old, right? And in that connection, I announced this yesterday, we're increasing the pace at which we're buying the Joint Strike Fighter. Both the Navy and the Marine Corps variant will be buying more of those than we had planned in the next few years, so that we hasten and move forward the arrival of that terrific aircraft right over there, which has reached IOC at this place, which is a huge achievement, by the way. That's a spectacular aircraft, and an enormous amount of work went into making that aircraft successful. And there were times when, it took really a great deal of work on the part of everyone. But there it is, and there it is at IOC. So that's another way that we can address the readiness issues for the Marine Corps. And I think I wanted you to know that I was aware of them and that we were taking action in both of those respects, both putting more money into maintenance itself and also more into accelerating the buys of new aircraft. And I could say the same thing about the CH-53K and so forth and all the other aircraft that are represented around here. Because we need very high readiness in the Marine Corps. We need it everywhere, but we need it in the Marine Corps because you are the first to fight. You're our ready, alert force. You accomplish that mission all the time, but because we've called on you to do that a lot, you've worked your cells and also your equipment very hard. And so we got to catch up a little bit to the maintenance cycle. I wanted you to know that we were paying attention to that, and also, importantly, to the full spectrum training necessity that has to do with the fact that we need to be ready for today's fights and tomorrow's fights, and for relatively low end, but still necessary to win conflicts right up to higher end. For the Marine Corps, that means combined arms, full spectrum training. That's mostly done at 29 Palms, and I wanted you to know that we've also addressed that, and our budget addressed that, to make sure that we fully fund combined arms training, which is full spectrum training for the Marine Corps. It's important to get back to that, because we spent many years of necessity training specifically mostly for coin, right? And because of Iraq and Afghanistan. Now we're making the transition to a wider spectrum of needs, and so we need you and the Marine Corps generally to be trained to that wider spectrum, and that requires combined arms training. That's the kind of thing that's done down at 29 Palms. So those are some of the highlights for the Marine Corps budget. We're specifically making investments in the Marine Corps because of the necessary role. We're making specifically, among others, the investments I've described to you, because they'll show up right here, and they're relevant to what you do right here. So I want you to know that, but the main thing I want you to know is how incredibly proud I am of you. You are what I wake up for every day. We have the finest fighting force the world has ever known. I'm exceptionally proud to say that. It's important that that be true not only today, but tomorrow, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And that's why investing in equipment, investing in people, so that the people who come after you are as good as you are. That's why we're constantly thinking about how we manage people, how we attract people, how we retain people. So in every generation, we keep people who are, and get people and keep people who are as good as you. But you get to wake up every morning and do the noblest thing that any person can do, and that is defend their people defend their country, defend the great civilization represented by our country, and also make a better world for our children. And that's pretty great. Wake up, be part of something bigger than yourself. That's a great feeling that you all have, that I share with you, and it makes me immensely proud of our country and especially proud of the wonderful Department of Defense.